Hello everyone, I welcome you all to this lesson. Today I am going to discuss Merchant of Venice, Act 3, Scene 2, Part 2, written by William Shakespeare, which takes place at Belmont, a room in Portia's house. So here I begin. And before that, let me ask you, have you subscribed to my channel? If you haven't subscribed up till now, then please do and watch the video till end and press the like button if you have liked it. So now let us start Act 3, Scene 2, Part 2. In my last video, I had done only a part of Act 3, Scene 2 and I had stopped where the song was being played and Bassanio made his choice. And this speech of Bassanio is a very important one. He gives 6 examples to prove that outward appearance may be deceptive. This is also Shakespeare's tagline. Don't go by outward appearance. It can be deceptive. Bassanio. So may the outward shows at least themselves. The world is still deceived with ornament. In law would please so tainted and corrupt, but being seasoned with a gracious voice obscures the show of evil. So Bassanio is taking a very positive or practical approach. So he looks at the caskets and says that outward appearance might not show that real truth, means to say that they did not show the reality. Ornamentation means outer appearance may be deceptive, not only real truth in it. And men are always deceived by ornamental things. In law, what please so tainted and corrupt, but being seasoned with gracious voice obscures the show of evil. This is your first example. So example number 1. So what does he say? That in the field of law, in a court of law, what happens? The case might be a very bad case. It might be a vicious, a dishonest case, but in the hands of a fine lawyer or eloquent lawyer who has a very pleasant voice, it might cover up the face of the evil. Means to say that the face of the evil may be covered up by the allegation of the lawyer who is fighting the case. So the evil of the case does not get exposed because the lawyer with his very pleasant voice hides the show of evil. In religion, this is example number 2. In religion, what damned error, but some sober bro will bless it and approve it with a text hiding the grossness with a fair ornament. So this is the second one. First was the case of law, court, and the second one is in the field of religion. Now suppose a sin has been committed, but a very serious looking person might come and support it. Then, in order to justify his support, he might quote a line from the scripture and in this way hide the wickedness of the sin with his knowledge on the scripture. Suppose a sin has been committed. I commit a sin. Someone comes with a very holy appearance and he says, No, this is not a sin which she has committed. And then he will quote some lines from the Holy Scriptures and try to justify it. That is my act. So the wickedness or the sin which I have committed gets hidden under the grave looking face and his knowledge of the scriptures, and not only that, there is no voice so simple but assumes some mark of virtue on his outward parts. And there is also reason why, because some vice they might resemble a virtuous act. Some vices act may have one or two similarities with a virtuous act. So this man with a sober brow or this tedious looking person will try to justify by saying, see, such and such act is a virtuous act. These are the characteristics of a virtuous act, and this act which he has committed, or rather I have committed it, these are the characteristics of that act. So there is a similarity to the good act. This cannot be a vicious act. This cannot be a sin. So he has committed no sin. So trying to justify a sin by showing its resemblance to a good act, so this cannot be a sin. Now suppose if I have a headache can be a reason for a brain cancer, a brain tumor, a migraine, or maybe simple cold which I have caught. For that reason, you will have a headache. So these are the similarities. So just because I have a headache, I cannot say that I have a brain cancer. So there may be a similarity, but the causes may be different. Characteristics may be similar. The characteristics is the headache. The reasons might be different. So one characteristics may be common to a good act or a bad act, and a man with a serious face will try to prove it that no sin has been committed and was indeed a virtuous act, and in that way try to give a different outlook to a sinful, try to give a good outlook to a sinful act. How many cowards whose hearts are as false as tears of sand wear yet upon their chins the beards of Hercules and frowning Mars. See, some people might be in a reality coward. You say in Hindi a darpok. They may be cowards, but they don't want that their cowardice should be exposed before others. What do? They put a beard of Hercules. He had a small beard here in the chin. So Hercules' beard like frown like the war god Mars. You see a frowning man and a beard of Hercules, and you say, oh my God, he is so formidable. So keep him away. But is that the reality? No. In fact, he might be a coward from within, but his outward appearance makes us believe that he is an arrogant person. Don't fool with him. Why does he paint this type of appearance? So that others might be afraid of him and they wouldn't know that the fact that he is a coward. So children, I hope you remember Sir Oracle, those who behave like Sir Oracle, and yet if they speak as Gratiano had said that if they speak, the ears of their brother would be damned for calling them fools. So remember, there also their outward appearance was deceptive because they had wore a very grave and sober outlook. only to make others believe that they are very knowledgeable, where in fact they were fools. They know nothing. So, here also a person spotting the beard of Hercules and frowning like Mars, and people think that they are very brave, who in word searched have livers white as milk, and these assumes but vellus excrement, to render them redoubted. So if you examine them, don't take it literary or seriously, then you will find that their livers are white. In those days, it was believed that a coward had a white liver and a brave person's liver was red. This is all rubbish, white as milk, and they just try to outwardly adopt these appearances so that no one should think that they are cowards, only to make themselves formidable before others. Only to appear formidable before others, they put the beard of Hercules and they frown like Mars. So, this is the third example. First was law, second was religion, and the third one is cowardice. Now, this is the fourth example. Look on beauty, and you shall see it's purchased by the weight. Look on beauty here means the cosmetics which makes a person look beautiful. Look on that, and you will see that it is purchased by the weight. A bottle may be 50 gram or 100 grams. Cosmetics like powder, then a lipstick, etc., which makes a person look beautiful outwardly. And you shall see it's purchased by the weight, which therein works a miracle in nature. And these cosmetics, they work as a miracle in nature. A person's appearance changes. A person goes to a parlor and then, after a makeover, when she comes back and plays from Zen to Jessica, so just see to Jessica. So, this is what happens. It works a miracle in nature, making them lightest that wear most of it. So, here lightest are used in two senses. One can be that it makes them look very fair, and another means that it makes them right in character. So, this was the fourth example, and now we come to the fifth one. So, are those crisp, snaky golden locks which make a wanton gambles with the wind upon supposed fairness often known to the dowry of a second head, the skull that bred them in the sculpture. So again another example which Bassanio puts forward is that just think of the curly hair on the face of the person, on the face of the beautiful lady who suppose fairness. Just see the crispy, snaky, and the golden locks of the hair, and the way they rise and fall. The wind blowing it makes the person look so beautiful, and often known to be a dowry of the second head. This head, which is making this person look so beautiful, does not belong to her. It is a wig. So, it is actually this beautiful hair has been taken from another head, and the person to whom this hair really belongs is maybe dead or in her grave. So, the skull that bred them in the sculpture, thus ornament is but the gilded shore to the most dangerous sea. So, in this way, ornaments are outward adornment. They might be looked or seen as a treacherous shore to a very dangerous sea. We might think that the shore is not very wide, outwardly may not seem to be dangerous, And the moment we think that it may not be dangerous and try to step into it, and then we realize that it is not at all shallow and it goes deep and you go down under. So, ornaments are like that. If you go by ornaments, if you trust them, you might be waiting for a great shock of your life. The beauteous scarf, veiling an Indian beauty, in a word, the seeming truth which cunning times put on to enwrap the wisest. So, a lovely scarf, a beautiful scarf, it covers the face on an Indian beauty, that is, maybe red Indian or West Indians who may have dark complexion, racist Shakespeare. So, a beautiful scarf, and when you lift the scarf, you find an Indian beauty or a woman with a dark complexion inside. So, that means the scarf is beautiful, but what is inside the scarf? That is, the face is not beautiful. So, don't go by the beautiful scarf. If you go by it, then you may be waiting for its shock. So, the seeming truth which cunning times put on to enwrap the wisest. So, in the nutshell, this is an appearance of the truth which clever people put on, make a trap for the wisest also. Even the wisest person, many a time, they are trapped by an outward appearance. Therefore, thou gaudy gold, hard food for Midas, I will none of thee. So, this is the reason for rejecting the gold casket, because outwardly it is shining, glittering, and beautiful, but the inside may not be beautiful. You already know, we already know, but Bassanio does not know. But inside you know what is there? The skull. So Bassanio intelligently refuses to select the gold casket because he feels that the outward ornament might be a dangerous shore. It might be a treacherous shore to a dangerous sea. So, and why does he say hard food for Midas? Remember, there was a king called Midas and had love for gold. He had asked for a boon that whatever he touches should turn to gold. So initially he was very happy because whatever he touched turned to gold. His first shock came when his food turned to gold and he could not eat. And the worst shock came when he asked his daughter to fetch him a jar of water, and when she brought it, he touched her and she turned to gold. And then he realized that the gold is not the best thing, and he asked for his blessings to be taken back. So that is why he says hard food for Midas, because Midas' food had turned to gold. That means it had turned to hard metal, and you cannot do without food. So he rejects the gold casket. Nor none of thee thou, pale and common drudge, between Mars and man. So then he refuses the silver casket, saying that you are pale and you are just a slave passing from hands of one man to the other. How? In the form of coins. In the form of coin, the silver passes from the hand of one man to another. So he rejects this also. And then he turns his attention to the lead casket. But thou Miyagi lid, which rather threatens thou than dost promise aught, thy Blalin moves me more than eloquence, and here choose it. I, joy be the consequence. So he says that, let you are of a very little value. Remember, the other two had discarded the lead only because of the lack of brilliance and its lack of monetary value. They had rejected it, but Bassanio says, though you are of little value, and this inscription which you have, it seemed to threaten. It does not promise anything, but rather threatens. The other two promises, this one threatens, but this moves Bassanio more than the other two. So he says that your message, it moves me more than any eloquent words. Eloquent words were in the gold and the silver casket, but the blunt message here attracts him because he is a lover, and a lover should be ready to risk everything for the sake of his beloved. Most probably, this is what was running in his mind when he chose the lead casket. So, this is why he chooses the lead casket and he wishes that the results may be happy. So, he is given the key. Portia, just see, had been waiting full of anticipation and anxiety, and she knows in which casket it is. So the moment she sees him going for the lead casket, see her reaction. Portia aside, how all the other passion flee the air, as doubtful thoughts and rash embreaths despair, and shuddering fear and green-eyed jealousy. So these were the emotions that were torturing Portia when Bassanio was making a choice. So she now wishes that all these emotions, the negative emotions which had been torturing her as doubtful thoughts, and then the feeling of despair, the fear, the trembling fear, the green eyed jealousy, may all these negative feelings disappear from her mind. And what should be in her mind? Be filled with only love. Oh, love, be moderate. Although allay this ecstasy, in measured in rain of thy joy, scan the excess I feel too much thy blessings. Make it less, for fears I surfeit. So she is as if praying to God of love that to be calm, to be moderate, because she is being overflooded with love. She doesn't want in excess. Remember, Act 1, Scene 2. When what Nerissa had told that it is best to remain in the middle because either excess, that is, on either side, either extreme are not good. A hungry man also feels discomfort, and an overeating man, a man who has fed too much, also feels discomfort. In the same manner, in the same way, here she also wants that love should reign on her moderately. She is asking the God of joy and love, O love, be moderate. She does not want an excess, an alibi as courtesy. So please try to check your too much on me. I don't want any excess. I feel too much thy blessings. Don't bless me so much that it becomes in excess. I feel that your blessings are made too much, make it less. For fear I surfeit. So she wants that too much of blessings should be reduced because she does not want to suffer from excess. So she wants that the bliss should be reduced because she is feeling it too strongly, as if she wants to say that I can't take so much, so reduce this. And in the meantime, what happens to our hero Bassanio? What find I here? He opens the leaden casket. Fair Portia's counterfeit? What demigod hath come so near creation? Move these eyes? Yes, what every suitor had crushed to see and had been disappointed because they had not seen it. It is for Bassanio what fair Portia's counterfeit. So fair Portia's likeness of Portia. It is actually the portrait of Portia. What demigod hath come so near creation? To whom does he refer to as demigod? The artist who had made the portrait of Portia. So he is as if a half god. God has created Portia and he has come very near creation because the portrait of Portia is so lifelike that it seems as if it is real. Move these eyes, or whether riding on the balls of mine, seem thy in motion. So then he looks in the eyes of the Portia and he says, are these eyes moving? Or is it because my eyeballs are moving? So they too seem to be moving. So then he points his attention on the lips of Portia's portrait. Here are severed lips, parted with sugar breath. So this is what we call exaggeration. The lips are parted. The picture has been painted in such a way that the two lips are parted. They are parted, and he says that they are parted with sugar breath. How can you tell that in a portrait? So this is also exaggeration. So sweet of bar should surrender such a sweet friend. So he says that the breath is as if acting as a partition to separate the two friends. Which are the two friends here? The upper lip and the lower lip. Here in her hair, now he concentrates on the hair of the Portia. In the portrait of Portia, here in her hairs, the painter plays the spider and hath woven a golden meshed entrap the hearts of men faster than grates in cobwebs. But her eyes. So then he says that the painter has like the spider. You know that the spider has a web. So the artist who has created this portrait, he has as if like a spider made a golden web. That means you remember Act 1 Scene 1 where Portia's hair was golden in color. So he has made a golden web to capture the hearts of men faster than insects are trapped in the cobweb. But her eyes, how could he see to do them? Having made one, methinks it should have the power to steal both his and leave itself unfurnished. Yet, look how far. This is the height of exaggeration. He looks at the eyes of Portia in the portrait and says, my goodness, how could he see to do them? So how was he able to paint these eyes? And he explains what he means by, because after having painted one eye, this eye of Portia should have the power to steal both the eyes of the painter and make it blind, and thus the picture should have remained unfurnished. But how did he complete the picture after painting one eye only? That One eye of Portia should have the power to steal with the eyes and make him blind and leave the picture incomplete. How did he really complete the picture with both the eyes? Yet look how far the substance of my praise doth wrong this shadow in underprising it. So far this shadow doth limp behind the substance. And then he says, see, my praise, to what an extent the words of my praise is underestimated. These lines, that means Portia in the substance, and this is her portrait. And though I am praising the portrait so much, and yet it is nothing in it as compared to the real Portia. So just see to what extent the portrait lies far behind the original. So, though he is praising the portrait so much, but it is nothing in comparison to the original Portia. Here's the scroll, the continent and the summer of my fortune. So then he gets a scroll. This is a happy news. You are chosen by the view, chance of fair, and choose as true. Since the fortune falls to you, be content and seek no new. If you be well pleased with this, and hold your fortune for your bliss, then you where lady is, and claim her with a loving kiss. So what a nice scroll. The other two was a disappointing one, but this is a very nice scroll. So what is written in this scroll? What you have not chosen only by your eyes. Remember what the Prince of Aragon had said, that he wouldn't equate him with the common people because they choose by outward appearance. So here Bassanio has not gone by outward appearance, and that is, he chooses the lead casket. So you have not chosen just by your eyes alone. So may you always be lucky. May you always be fortunate and choose in the same true manner as you have chosen here. And since this fortune here, it refers to Portia, has fallen to you, be satisfied with what you have got and seek no new. That means don't become or don't be a flirt, and don't go on having affairs with other women also, because she is a fortune. She has fallen to you. Be satisfied with what you have got and don't seek for any another woman in your life. If you be well pleased with this, if you are really happy with what you have got, and hold your fortune for your bliss, and if you think with what you have got is your happiness, then go to the place where your lady is standing and claim her with a loving kiss. Yeah, because he has won by choosing the right casket and won Portia. He has a right to go and claim her with a loving kiss. The scroll gives him the permission, a gentle scroll. Fair lady, by your leave, kissing her. Yeah, obviously, a gentle scroll. He turns to Portia. Fair lady, by your leave, he asks permission. I come by note to give and receive like one of the two contending in a prize. So by note, here what note means, that means the scroll has directed him to go and claim her with a loving kiss. So he says, I come by note to give a kiss and to receive one, like one of the two contending in a prize. That things He had done well in people's eyes. Hearing applause and universal shout, giddy in spirit, still gazing in a doubt whether these peals of praise be his or no. So thrice, fair lady, stand I, even so, as doubtful whether what I see it be true, until I confirm, signed, ratified by you. So he is in a state of confusion. He says that he is like one of the two competitors. They contend for a prize and one of them wins. But this person is not a very certain whether he has won or not. He can only hear and feel that he had done well. And how does he realize that he has done well? Because the spectators, the people who are witnessing this competition, they are shouting his name and they are applauding him. That means he doesn't know whether he has won the prize, but looking at the behavior of the audience, that the action of the spectators who are shouting, who are applauding, he realizes that he has done well. Giddy in spirit, he is very excited and still dazing in doubt. He is still not confident. He is doubtful whether the people who are praising, they are praising him, or are the praises for him or not. So thrice fair lady stand I even so. So thrice fair lady refers to Portia, and I am also standing here. I am in a similar doubtful condition whether I have won you or not. So unless you confirm, sign and ratify me, that means unless you confirm and approve of me, I can't believe that I have won this. I have won you. You are mine. I have won this casket scheme. I can't be certain unless you approve of me. You ratify me. O most beautiful lady, you confirm that you, Bassanio, you have won me and I am yours. So I'll stop here because I have already told you that this is a very difficult scene and quite a few speeches are very important. And the next speech which follows is that of Portia, which is no less important, though it had come once, yet it is important. So this act will be in 3 parts. I could have finished in one video only, but that could have been a very lengthy one. So I am deliberately taking time so that I can deal with very important lines with you. Every important lines with you. So dear children, I end this video Act 3 Scene 2 Part 2 here. It is your examination time. So study hard and come out with flying colors. My best wishes are with you. Do like, share and subscribe with your friends. Thank you.